Hey everybody, I'm Matt Hernandez, and today I'm going to show you how to match the colors of your photos without using presets. Okay, so those of you that have followed me for a while know that I've been using Capture One for a few years now. I used Lightroom when I first started taking pictures back in 2010, and Lightroom's a great program. I love it, but I personally prefer Capture One a little bit more. I think it handles color and sharpness and just overall raw files better than Lightroom does. When you open the same file in Photoshop, you can see there is a distinct difference between the two when you open one from Lightroom, the same photo from Lightroom and Capture One into Photoshop. But that being said, like I said, there's nothing wrong with using Lightroom. So we're going to use a new feature in Capture One called Match Color, and it basically uses AI to, I think it uses AI, it has to. I don't know how else it would do it. It analyzes the photo. It doesn't have to be raw. It can be a JPEG or a flat TIFF or whatever, and it will. I don't know if it does PSDs or not. That's a good question actually, but I know it does those two. It's going to analyze it, and then it's going to take the photo that you choose to replicate with, and it's going to try to apply that same look to it. So let's dive in and take a look and see how we can accomplish that. So before we do that, one thing that Lightroom has had on Capture One for a while is their masking capabilities and their layers. And so the new update, well actually not the new update, the new beta for Capture One has some new, they've had masking for a little while, but they've expanded them now. So if you go up to the layers and masks panel over here on the left, and you look up here, now we've got subject, background, and people. So that's the new tab here. And if you click on that, you can see before you could select the subject, you could select the background, but that was it. That's what you were limited to. And you could use the AI brush and mouse over other parts of the image, and it would show you a preview of what it was going to select. So you could get a little bit more refined, but sometimes it was a little bit frustrating because it didn't know what you were actually trying to pick. And it still does that. It still will allow you to mouse over objects like the face of somebody or like a helmet or something like that. But now you can do specific things: body skin, face skin, eyes, eyebrows, lips, and hair. So I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but one reason I was excited about this was because one thing I do like to use in Capture One is I like to even out skin. So people that have a little bit of redness in their skin, like maybe on their cheeks or wherever, rosacea, anything like that, splotchy skin, you can select the skin, put it on a layer, and there's a skin color tab in Capture One, which I've always really loved because that helps your edits look good as raw files when you export them for your client to see. Because it's, even if somebody has bad skin and you tell them, I'm going to fix it in post once you order your photos, it's still hard for them to get past it. So if they have like really red cheeks, they're still going to see that on every picture. So if you have a lot of contrast the way you edit like I do, it can make that a little bit more noticeable, and it's hard for her. It might keep them from liking a photo they might otherwise like. So I always try to fix that in Capture One, even though I'm going to retouch the photo later in Evoto. I like to do it on the front end, as I've always done since I started using Capture One. That was one of the main things I really liked about it, actually, that drew me to it. I thought that was a really cool feature. So, okay, so I couldn't really find one that was a really good example with somebody with really splotchy skin. This one is not bad at all. He does have a little bit of redness cheeks, but it'll still be good just to show you the example. Okay, so let's go up here to the People tab. So I've got body and face checked first. I'm going to uncheck that. So we're just going to check face now, because if you check eyes, eyebrows, lips, and hair, one of the things about the skin tab in Capture One that was always a little bit challenging was the lips, because I don't want to take color out of those. I don't want to make those more green. And if somebody's got the skin that's a little bit orange or a little bit red, then it was a little bit challenging to mask around the lips sometimes. Sometimes I would get outside the lines and not realize it. It would make it look like possibly like if I missed like on the outside and had the mask too wide, it could look like they had lipstick on when they didn't. So this is huge for that. So, all right, so let's hit create mask so you can see what it did here. I'm going to zoom in. Now it didn't get the bottom of his chin just because his neck's right there. He's got his head turned, so we can add to that by just pressing our brush tool. So I'm going to hold Control and Option and mouse to the left and draw that in. Another way you could do it too is select the AI brush and then mouse over that right there. Now if you want to press M, it'll take away what's masked, and then that shows you the preview of it right there. Okay, I'm not worried about that shadow area. Okay, so let's go down. So it's got it on its own layer here. The face the face skin mask 1. So let's go down to the color editor and go to skin tone. So now I'm going to sample the area of skin that I want and then expand it a little bit here on the pie, on the color wheel. I'm going to expand, say that again. I'm going to expand a little bit here on the color wheel. I'm going to move the smoothness all the way to the right. And now, so if you go to the hue slider, then you can go to the left or the right. And so that's going to make it more green. Left's going to make it more magenta. And you can see it's a very subtle change, but it is definitely a difference. So I'm going to go to the right a little bit and then maybe take the saturation down just a hair. We don't want to go overboard with that. I usually don't mess with the lightness too much because that can make it look a little bit weird when it makes the shadows brighter than they need to be. And then uniformity is really where you're going to see a change here, and it's going to even the skin out. So I'm going to go to hue and then move it about halfway up, saturation about halfway up, and then again, lightness I'm not going to mess with. So now it maybe needs a little bit less green, so we're not going to move it a whole lot here. We're just going to go to 1.5. So now, if we go up here and uncheck it, so you can see all the redness come back like here and here, and then when you check it back, now it's gone. Now that might be a little bit overboard, and we might go back to 0 even, or we could even try it on the magenta side too and just see what that looks like, because he does have a little bit of redness skin. So that helps even out all those areas that aren't even, right? And that just gives you a little bit of a head start on retouching, so you don't have to do quite as much later. And it also helps the client with their proofs. So like in this example, now his lips stand out a little bit to me, just like I was just talking about. So if we wanted to, what we could do is go get the brush, and then I'm going to control click, and I'm going to go to opacity and take it down to about 50, because I don't want to take it away completely, because if I make it 100%, that takes all the color out. We don't want that. That doesn't look realistic, right? So maybe let's go, I didn't mean to do that. Let's go to 30%, so a third. There we go. So that just took a little bit, that masked it over his lips a little bit, so it took a little bit of the color out, or evened out the color a little bit, because the layer is his face overall. So now it's a little bit more even. So for his Command Z and go back, you can see it's much more red now, and it took it out. And again, these are subtle differences, but they do add up and make a difference over the long haul. So, and it does save you time too. So, okay, so that is the main part of the masking that I really think I'm going to enjoy. You can also brighten eyes up a little bit. What else do we have here? You can change the color of somebody's lips if you wanted to, or even, brighten or darken down their hair depending. So a lot of different options here to play with now, more than we had before. Okay, so that takes care of the masking part. Now let's go to color match, which is really what I wanted to talk about today. So I have several pictures in here that we're going to use to take color from and then to add it to. So let's go to something that's pretty drastic. So this is a little bit more color graded than I typically color grade my photos, and it's a flat tip, so it's not a raw file. So we couldn't, if I had lost the raw file and just had the flattened file and I wanted to recreate it, that would be a problem in the past. But now what we can do is scroll back up here, and we'll go to match look, which is a new tab here. Okay, so then there's a box here with the dotted lines around it. So you're going to grab the photo that you want to replicate and drag it into that box. So that, and you can drag more than one. I think you can drag up to like 19 maybe, is what they said. And it'll like, I guess, average all of them. I think it might be better to use one, but you could take a group of somebody's photos that has the same type of look on everything they edit, and then put them all together, and it'll analyze all of them together to get an overall look. So that could be cool too. We're not going to do that right now. We're just going to use one though. Okay, so let's go down. Let's go back to our grid here by pressing G. Okay, so here's another picture from the shoot, from the same shoot with the same guy. This is raw. There's nothing done to it. So we've got that selected as our variant. So you can see the options here. We've got normalize with exposure, white balance, light and contrast. And you can click the arrows and see what's underneath each one of these. And you can uncheck them or check them. You can also select the impact. So you can go all the way up to 125. And what I've noticed is that's usually too harsh. So I usually want to back off of it a little bit. And a lot of times it seems like that the exposure and maybe the white balance aren't 100, especially the exposure. It tends to make things a little bit brighter. So those sometimes I've been unchecking whenever I've been using this. So let's just go ahead and check it out and see what this does. We're going to try it at 80%. So we'll have everything checked first and then just hit apply. Okay, so like I said, that made it too bright, which is not a huge deal, but one thing that you do need to also be aware of too is that there is an option. Where is that option? Hold on. What the crap? Oh yeah, right there. So there's an option that says apply as new layer. If you don't check that, so let's do it again. Let's press Command Z, uncheck that, and hit apply again. So now it's just going to do it to the whole image, and so you can see the levels are adjusted, the curves are a little bit adjusted. So it's gonna use all of the regular editing tools to make the change. Now, if you select apply as new layer, which I've been doing, then it puts it on its own, and you can adjust the opacity of it if you want to. So one thing you can do too, so this is too bright. So I'm going to open normalize, I'm going to uncheck exposure, and I'm going to hit apply again. Now it's not going to do it twice like it would a preset. It would paste. So if you had a preset and it put it on its own layer, then it would duplicate that basically if you did that in the past. But now, or a style is what I should say. So now with this, with match color, it's not going to do that. It's just going to reapply it. It's going to reanalyze it and do it over. So let's hit apply again without exposure. Much better. Okay, so now let's grab both of these. Didn't mean to do that. Let's grab both of these. And okay, so it did a really good job. I feel like overall that's definitely the look of this first one. The sky is a little bit different. I feel like it's a little bit too blue possibly, but then when you look in the highlights, they look pretty close. So you can go in and adjust this all you want to. So let's go back to just this photo by itself. Like you can adjust the white balance and make it a little bit warmer if you wanted to, or we could probably go in and adjust we can uncheck some of these sliders too and kind of play with them to see what looks best. You could also go down to your advanced color editor here and select the blue and then maybe change the hue of it a little bit if you wanted to, or the saturation possibly. Maybe that's what we need to do, is change the saturation. So let's go back and look at it again now. So that did it. I selected the blues in the sky, lowered the saturation. I could have put those on their own layer if I wanted to, but that got it. That's extremely close. That to me looks pretty much like the same edit with the same preset, even though it's not. But to me, this is much faster because presets and styles, they do work, but sometimes they don't work on every photo, and you have to do a lot more work to them. People get frustrated with them because they buy these preset packs and they just think they're going to work with one click, and that's honestly more rare than common. I feel like that happens. So from my experience so far, this match color look works much better. It's much faster to get the look that you're wanting. And then you can also, like I said, you can go in. So now it's on its own layer, and it did everything that I was talking about before. Instead of the photo, it put it on this. So now you can turn it off, turn it back on. You can adjust the opacity and edit it that way. Okay, so all right, so here's a series of photos that I took in San Francisco last year. I'm getting ready to go back there for the Summit Sports California workshop, and I created a preset basically from scratch, or a style from scratch, and used with these and synced them. And I don't remember, it was almost a year ago at this point, so I don't remember how much I went back and tweaked them. But let's try and see if we can use one of them to do match color and see how close it gets. So I've got a duplicate of this photo right here. So let's make this our selected variant, then select this raw picture right here that we want it to look like, and hit apply at 70% and see, or 80% and see. So there's the match color, and then there's the one that I edited before. And you can see it's pretty close. This one's definitely got more green in it. So, and I don't know, maybe we'll want to uncheck white balance and then try it again. And that didn't do much difference there. Okay, so you can go in manually and tweak it if you want to, which I feel like that's probably gonna do, that did quite a bit right there. Let's press plus to raise the exposure. So it's a little bit off, but I mean, overall, that's pretty close though. Like you can go in and tweak it as much as you want to. You can do it to the match look layer, or you can do it to the image layer, the regular image layer if you want to. So that's a raw file too. So, okay, so, all right. So that one worked pretty good. Let's try it again with this one. Okay, so there's the original one that I edited, and there's the match color again. For some reason, it's reading a lot of green. Not a big deal. You can go in and adjust the white balance if you want, see if that works, and that really, it didn't quite do it. So we might have to tweak some other things in here, but overall, that's definitely a good start. Let's raise the exposure a little bit. And it might be just like a little bit of saturation here, possibly. Or it could be, you can go in, like you can go, there's a lot of different ways you could attack this. You can go in and sample the sky, and then like I did before, let's try doing that and see if that works again. So if there's one overwhelming color possibly that you're dealing with. Yeah, that did pretty good actually. So that's maybe that is a good way. Maybe that's a good way to go about it. You can mess with the hue too, so there. So down here it'll show you the color that you started with and the color that you've got now. So it's a little bit too aqua, probably. So pretty close, again. That's actually really close. Okay, so that did a really good job. Okay, now let's try, okay, so here's a football shoot that I did a different summit workshop in Denver, and let's see if we can, so I thought this really kind of encapsulates my sports look. I feel like I've got the blues desaturated in the background. It's got some good contrast and clarity added to it, but not too much. Let's use this one. And I've got a senior here that we filmed to make a course with that'll be coming out soon. So this is a football player. These are just raw files. So I've got several different looks here. So we've got one light here in the sun. We've got 3 lights here in the sun. These are definitely more dramatic. And then we've got one light underneath the stands. And then we've got, this one is actually lit with a beauty dish camera left, but it's a little bit more open, and the shutter speed's not quite as high, it's not as contrasty. So, and we're at 2.8, so we're wide open. So it looks a little bit more like natural light. And then this one's obviously really dramatic with the deep focus reflector. So let's try these and just see what they look like. And we're gonna go ahead and check normalize and just see. Okay, so that looked pretty good. I feel like it's not quite enough, maybe. Although I do like that did look good. But I'm gonna try something different. So there's something that I did on accident whenever I was getting ready to record this. And I've got my standard preset that I use here that I created myself. So there's the raw file, and then there's the preset that I use just about for pretty much everything on import to start with. And I'm gonna apply that style, and then I'm gonna go ahead and match the color afterwards and see the difference. So that turned out really good. Now that I like even more. So let's look at the difference here. Let's go back to, okay, so there's the original raw file. I'm gonna press Control, click, and then make a variant, okay? So let's match the color on this one. And then let's go to this one and select my preset. And then I'm gonna add also, I've got a blue desaturation that I put for the sky a lot of times, that I use for the sky. And we're gonna make it a little bit brighter. Maybe darken it just a hair. And then now let's apply the match color on top of that. Okay, so there's and then let's make one more just for the sake of argument here, and put just my preset on it. And then we'll add the blue desaturation also. A little bit too dark, so okay. All right, so there's my preset, or my style, I guess. There's the match color, and then there's both stacked on top of each other, which, that's taking a second to load. There we go. That to me looks awesome. So I'm probably going to say this is a preset and start using it, because that is great. I don't need to do anything else to it. Let's try that with these others and see if it does the same thing, because these are a little bit more dramatic. Okay. All right. So then add the style first, and then match it up here. So that looks a little bit too warm. So let's undo the white balance. Let's leave exposure. It still made it really warm. Huh, okay. let's uncheck normalize altogether. Try one more time. And then, okay, well, I tell you what. Let's raise it up just a little bit with the exposure. I feel like that's just too warm, so let's just back it off. But that still looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and maybe the blue saturation will help a little bit. There you go, good. Or blue desaturation, I should say. Back off that again. Okay, so let's press Y. So there's before and there's after. All right, so that looks pretty good. Let's see if we can just sync that. So I'm gonna hold shift, select both of these. I'm gonna copy and then hold shift and hit paste. So this one's a little bit underexposed, this action shot. It needs to be cropped in a little bit too. Get those lights out of there, which I can worry about that later. Okay, so he definitely is a little bit too dark, I think. Let's check normalize and do it again one more time real quick. Maybe that'll help. It does a little bit. I feel like that I don't like the white balance on that, so uncheck that. Maybe go up to 90. Try it again. Okay. Just going to adjust the white balance just a little bit too warm and magenta for me. Okay, so that looks much better. So now his skin can be adjusted. So now let's go in and add an adjustment, add a layer, and then go to the masking and then do face and body skin. We're going to put everything in here this time actually because we want all of that to be just a little bit brighter. And you could probably leave it like that, but his face especially probably needs to be a little bit brighter. So I press M. So it got a little bit, that helmet, it was confused a little bit, which is no big deal. We can definitely get the eraser tool here and then erase that. So again, control option makes it bigger and smaller, and up and down makes it softer and harder when you're using a brush. And I erased a little bit too much there. If you hold option when you're taking it away, then it'll bring the plus back. Okay, so now we've got all that selected. Maybe add a little bit down here. Press M so it goes away, and then now I'm gonna pull the exposure up on his skin just a little bit. There we go. So I didn't want to blow out his pants because they're white or the number or anything like where the edge lights are hitting him. So there, that looks much better. So we turn that mask off. That was much easier to do just his skin because I wouldn't have wanted to do it to his legs or his pants. So that looks great. All right, let's try it again down here. So again, I think we're a little bit too green, maybe a little bit warm. Just adjust the white balance a little bit. There we go. There's before and there's after. Oh, that's okay. So that's interesting. So that's not working actually on the base image. You're going to have to go up to. So let's go back to shot on the white balance. Go back up to the match look, and that's where you're going to adjust the white balance. There we go. Well, that's good to know that you can't, once it puts that on there, then you're not going to be able to adjust it just on the image layer by itself, even if it's a raw file. All right, this will be interesting. Let's try it here. Let's try it on the hunting picture here. And let's go to our layers and uncheck that, and then hold shift and hit paste again. We didn't mean to crop it, but that's okay. Okay. There we go. Okay. So let's make sure that our style is selected. Here it is. Yeah, so that definitely did some color grading and made it look, and that actually did a really good job. I guess because the image is shot a little bit more wide open and the background's not quite as dark and contrasty, it still didn't add as much contrast as the other image had, which is very interesting. I would not have expected it to behave like that, but that looks really good though. And let's try one more. And I did not mean to add my layers there. All right, let's try it one more time. Copy, and then we'll go in here and uncheck layers, and then hold shift and hit paste. There we go, good. I'm gonna hit plus to up the exposure just a little bit, and then there's before and there's after. So again, very subtle color grading, but that looks really good. I'm very impressed. I mean, I feel like that this, just at least on the surface from testing it like this looks like this works a lot better than styles do, honestly. So if you have I've developed a style, I feel like I have over 14 years of doing this. A look that I give most of my images, and I feel like that I might be able to recreate that a little bit easier now. So I don't know, I'm gonna try it out and see. I feel like that batching images might be, it might even work better when you do that, because you can batch them together, select a bunch at the same time and do this. And I mean, but it seems like it works pretty well. So I am definitely impressed. So I'm gonna for sure add this to my workflow. I would definitely suggest checking it out. I'm a big fan of Capture One anyway, so you guys all know that. But so it's a really cool feature I'm excited to start using now moving forward. So all right, well, I hope that helped. I hope that's going to help your editing workflow. I would definitely if you don't have Capture One, haven't tried it, I would download beta and just see what you think, because it's a pretty powerful tool. So if you guys haven't, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell so you get notified whenever we post new content. There's going to be a lot more to come. And also make sure you go to my website, Matthernandez.shop, sign up for the newsletter. That way you'll know whenever we're going to be doing new workshops, whenever I release new templates or anything like that. All news, you'll be getting that right to your inbox. So thanks again. We'll see you next time.